Hi Millie, how are you?
I'm finding you.
Thank you. I'm also fine. So today we expect some assignment like the movie review, isn't it? So which movie you are going to
Yes.
review that?
So I chose A Time to Kill.
A Time to Kill. Okay. So
Yes.
you can start your review with the movie A Time to Kill.
All right. So my name is Millicent Mashego. I'm a future legal practitioner from the University of South Africa. I chose to do the legal aspects of the American film called A Time to Kill. It's starring Samuel L. Jackson, who plays the character of Carl Lee Haley, who is accused and is standing a criminal trial before a judge and a jury in the state of Mississippi. That community is a majority of white people. So there's a lot of racial tensions in that particular community. But to give a background of how the criminal case came about, Carl Lee had a daughter that was walking on the streets one day from the grocery shop, and two white men, I'm going to highlight the fact that they were racist white men, decided to do some criminal activities on her. They maliciously assaulted her with grievous bodily harm, and they raped her, and then they tried to hang her, but they couldn't, and then they decided to dump her in an area that's sort of a trench or a valley that's a bit hidden where people wouldn't be able to find her easily. Fortunately, she didn't die. Although their plan was to kill her, they wanted to leave her there for death. The scenes of that particular see or the incident of the actions of that particular incident are quite graphic. I will mention them because in a normal criminal case, it has to be mentioned as to what exactly happened. So after they kidnapped her, they then took her and raped her. Uh, Both of them raped her, and then they peed on her. They hit her, and it also caused harm on her skin. It cut her. So there were a number of crimes that were committed in this situation. In the South African context, we identifying kidnapping, rape, assault, attempted murder, and there can also be civil charges that can be claimed in terms of pain and suffering and damages for medical expenses that she would have suffered. Because the young lady, the girl survived the incident. Fortunately, she was found, and her father found out about it. And as any parent would be, he was very angry. He couldn't handle the situation. He couldn't handle the pain that his daughter had gone through. He couldn't understand how the people had behaved and how they caused his daughter so much pain. So he wanted to do something about it. He didn't have peace knowing that they could potentially get away because it is a racist area. As mentioned, the majority of the people there were white, and these were white men that committed the crime. So he decided that even if there was a trial that they actually had to appear before the court, he felt that it would not be enough because when he spoke to the attorney that he was consulting at the time, who's characterized or played by Matthew McConaughey, they mentioned a case where four young white men had raped a black girl in the South, and they had been acquitted of the crime. So, out of fear that his daughter would have no justice, he decided to do something about it. He therefore then obtained a rifle and he planned the right opportunity for him to be able to kill them. He took the rifle to the courthouse on the date that the two men were appearing before the court because they had been arrested. And publicly and openly, he opened fire. He killed them. In the process, he injured a policeman as well. Fortunately, he didn't die, but he did get injured and he had to have his leg amputated as well. So that would also be a crime that Kali committed as well. After that incident, he decided to hand himself over to the police. He didn't wait for them to come and arrest him. In the South African context, if a suspect voluntarily goes to the police station to hand themselves over, it could help in their bail application should they decide that they want to apply for bail, and if they are eligible for bail application, because that would mean that this person made it easy for the police. They understand that they've done something wrong. That's why they came forward to hand themselves over. Following this, the community was very angry. There was an uprising. There is a clan called the Ku Klux Klan that decided that they wanted to see him suffer. He had to be punished. One of the men that were murdered had a brother, and his brother was part of the KKK, and they decided that they wanted to see justice for the two men that were killed. And again, based on the fact that there's high racial tensions, they put aside the fact that there was a young girl that had been raped and there was no justice as yet for her. So they wanted to make sure that the man would suffer, obviously go to jail. But then he was represented by the small town lawyer who seemed to be an easygoing person, who seemed to not be very, very knowledgeable about such matters. But he wanted to help Carl Lee because he understood the issues of race in that society. For him, it was not about black and white. He understood that many black people would suffer such injustices simply because they are black. They wouldn't be afforded a fair trial. So he wanted to assist him. And unfortunately, because this is a small town and everybody knows everybody's business, everybody knows each other, even the judge was open enough to try to discourage him from taking up the case. The prosecutor went out of his way to make sure that the members of the jury were white people. And obviously, again, that reflects the racism, the depth of racism, because he knew that if there were no black people in that jury, there were very good chances that the black man would end up in jail. So there's deep issues that relate to race, and what I've highlighted in the South African context, according to Section 35 of the Constitution, the courts must be accessible to everyone. It doesn't matter what skin color you are, everybody must have access to the court. Everybody must be afforded a fair trial. Everybody is innocent until they are proven guilty in the court. And everybody has to have confidence in the judicial officers that they're impartial. They mustn't take sides. They must be able to give every single person that is accused a fair chance to actually present themselves and state what their side is. So in this case, it is as if they had already concluded what the judgment was going to be before they actually even had the trial. And with all the effort that they were making to actually prevent him from getting a fair trial and trying to discourage his lawyer, they didn't want him to be able to have an opportunity to walk away or to be acquitted from the crime. In South Africa, there is a concept called the rule of law as well. In terms of addressing the behavior of the KKK, as much as we all want justice, we cannot take justice into our own hands. This will also apply to Carl Lee. He also didn't have a right to take justice into his own hands. So because there's a legal justice system, there's procedures, there's criminal procedures that are in place that have to be followed until the case has been decided by a court. We have to be able to allow the court to hear all parties, to hear all the evidence, to hear all the statements that have the pleadings, so that the rule of law is followed and nobody is above the law. Everybody has to follow the same procedure. In this case, as stated before, it seemed that Kali was despondent. He didn't think that they would be able to give justice. He therefore decided to take things into his own hands. But the KKK also did the same thing. They threatened the lawyer, his family, his secretary. They burned his house. So those are all criminal activities that they would have also needed to be charged for. In a normal life situation, burning somebody's house is arson. It's an illegal crime. You cannot just burn somebody's house because you want to put pressure on them or harm them. They were committing crimes. But in this case, it doesn't seem that those crimes were addressed. So it goes back again to the system that is unfair. They had a very unfair legal system because it tended to focus more on the black man and his behavior than what the white people were doing. It therefore seems that they were able to get away with crime while black people were not afforded the same privilege, which is obviously unfair and unconstitutional. In South Africa, when we addressed the actions of Carl Lee, because the case was about the murder that happened, in the Criminal Procedure Act of 1977, murder is described as unlawful and intentional killing of another person. There has to be requirements. There has to be requirements that must be fulfilled as well when we are judging a murder case. The action must be unjustified. There shouldn't be a reason that can justify the behavior. There must be an intent as well for it to be called a murder. A person must have intentionally done something. And also, there must be a direct link between the action that was carried out by the accused and the victim. In this case, the accused was Carl Lee. He's the one who intentionally took a gun to a place where he knew he'd be able to find them helpless. They were not attacking him at that point. They were not doing anything vicious. He knew at that point that he would be able to kill them. So he had a plan. He premeditated the murder and he planned it, he carried it out, and he killed them. And then there was obviously that is a direct link because had the shooting not happened, they would not have died. So all the requirements that are required for murder are fulfilled by his actions. Now, the weird part or the surprising part, but then again, I suppose any defense attorney would be looking for a way out. Because in this case, there would have been witnesses as well that saw the incident happening, or those that heard the sounds of the gunshots. And obviously, there would be potentially cameras. In nowadays, most buildings have cameras. So that would be clear evidence of what has happened. But again, in this movie, the defense attorney decided that they would plead temporary insanity. So in terms of temporary insanity, it requires that the actions of the accused must have been involuntary. They must not have known that it was coming. They must not have planned for it. It's something that would happen out of their control. That means that at that point, they've lost their mind and they're not able to control their own actions. So it does not actually fit in with the actual events of that particular incident. In a normal justice system, temporary insanity would not stand.
Yeah.
Temporary insanity would not stand, even if the expert that they had actually called to be a witness, if he had not been disqualified for his own criminal behavior by the prosecutor, it would still not have been sufficient. Whatever he would have said would not have had sufficient evidence to support it. Because at that particular point, the accused, Carl Lee, he was not insane. He intentionally brought the gun, intentionally planned to kill. So it was a murder. It couldn't have been anything else. And in a normal justice system, he would stand trial for murder and he would most likely be convicted of the murder. But unfortunately, because it was a movie, the situation turned out differently. Relevant cases in South Africa that relate to issues of temporary insanity include the case of State versus Motsepe 2010, and the State versus Smith 2007, where the killers were also based on a racial tension, where a white man killed a black man, and they claimed that it was all out of temporary insanity. But obviously, the circumstances indicated that there was also racial hatred behind the killing. It wasn't just a fit of rage that caused the person to act in that way at that particular moment. In the closing statement, the attorney aimed at appealing to the jury's humaneness. In South Africa, our constitution is built on the concept of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a Nguni word that means humaneness. This means that you have to think of yourself as a human being and think of other people as human beings first. We are not just subjects, we're not just criminals, we're not just employees, but we are human first. And the human element must be considered first. And that's where we derive the principles of equality and fairness from. Because if you can think of yourself as a human being first, before you look at the skin color, before you look at the status, before you look at your education level or qualification or your salary or where you live, you must think of yourself as a person and also be empathetic enough to think of the other person being a human being as well. So what the attorney here was aiming to do, he asked them to put their racial discrimination aside. He asked them to close their eyes and to picture the very same incident that happened to that young girl had happened to a white girl. In this way, he was trying to show them that this should not be about race. It should be about what actually brought that man to act in that way. He was appealing to the concept of what we call, what would a reasonable man do? If any person was in that situation, what would they have done is the question. And that's what he did by appealing to their humaneness so they could picture themselves if they had been the father themselves, if they had been trying to protect their own child, their own daughter, if it was happening to them in their lives, how would they have responded? So he brought it closer to them. Therefore, that appealed to their humaneness, not just to skin color or race. And this is the point that turned the situation around, because based on how they responded, he then was able to convince them to change whatever preconditioned judgment they had in mind, whatever they had already decided in their mind. They changed it based on them now being empathetic enough to place themselves in that father's shoes. And this is what became a turning point in the whole trial. Because based on everything that we know, there was no way that he was going to be acquitted. He was guilty, but he appealed to their humaneness, and that changed the verdict in his favor. I'd like to indicate that, again, in the South African Constitution, the values of equality, of dignity, and human rights, they relate to the concept of transformative constitutionalism, which seeks to embody the practical values that can help change the lives of ordinary people in South Africa. In this instance, Black people were disadvantaged because they were Black. Favor was given to white people. This attorney worked very hard to ensure that he can put that aside and deal with the root cause, because the racism is what also pushed the criminals to do what they did, because they felt that they were more superior, they had a right to do what they were doing, and they potentially knew that there was a good chance they could walk away from it. So there was a good chance for them to not face any consequences. Therefore, they did it knowing that the law could work in their favor. So this position changed things, because now they were not going to be able to walk away from the crime. But that was due to Carl's actions. But also, fairness needed to be given to Carl. Why did he act the way that he acted? What brought him to that point? And this is what the jury realized at the end with that closing statement. My final words that I would like to put forward regarding this is that the depiction of the racial tensions was done very well in this movie, because race has been an issue for many centuries. For a long time, colonization created a lot of racial tensions between different groups of people. And unfortunately, even to this day, we are still experiencing a lot of it. In many occasions, we still see injustices based on racial discrimination, which is obviously unfair and still needs to be addressed. But I'd like to stress that the importance of the Constitution in South Africa is aimed at protecting the society, at protecting the people. And yes, if the justice system is broken, we must address it because there are cases where the police are working with criminals. They're taking bribes from criminals. They are making court documents disappear for criminals to get away. So there's a lot that also makes the community feel helpless, which is why they feel they must take matters, criminal matters or legal matters into their own hands. But that does not fix anything. We have to address the issues that affect society, and we have to speak up against the broken legal systems where it exists and change things around so that it can work for the people. Everybody in South Africa has the right to security. According to Section 12 of the Constitution, we have the right to freedom and security of the person, the right not to be deprived of freedom arbitrarily or without just cause, a right not to be tortured in any way, not to be treated or punished in a cruel, inhumane, or degrading way, and a right to have dignity, to be respected, and to be protected. And if the state fails to protect us in this way, perhaps with a different perspective, we cannot necessarily blame those that decide to take up the space that the justice system is leaving in. That's all I have to present today.
Okay, so thank you so much, Millie, for having such a nice and wonderful presentation. But I have some question. Before that,
Yes,
before that, I would like to appreciate the way you linked the movie's story and the legal system and in your South African context, and the amount of information like the Constitution of South Africa and all these things you explained while reviewing the movie. It was really excellent because these things are
thank you.
very nice. Honestly, I tell you, you really worked hard to prepare such presentation. It is really
Thank you.
appreciable a lot.
Thank
However,
you.
coming to
Thank
the part of the question, uh, the first thing that I would like to know, what are the legal points that you understood out of watching this movie?
Well, apart from everything that I've mentioned, I think the highlight for me again is the social inequalities that exist. That the justice system does not necessarily always address, or the rules are there, but then there's still an opportunity for the rules to be broken. And perhaps to a certain extent, crimes that are committed don't necessarily get the proportional punishment. For instance, if a crime is committed and somebody knows they can potentially get away from that, that is a problem. And if somebody commits a crime, they don't get a proportional sentence for that. Excuse me. Then that is a problem. I don't know if I'm answering the question correctly or if you're looking for something else.
Huh. Well, of course, no, it is fine. But another point, my intention behind asking this question is about your learning, because there are, see, I tell you, when you are correlating this movie with the reality and what is happening,
Yes.
so there are two Latin terms that you should understand. The first one is disere. I believe you must know disere. Okay, you can check it out later, but I explain the term. Disere
Okay.
means, disere means what is the law, what law says about anything. So whatever the law says that if someone killed someone, he or she will be punished. And law also defines the quantum of punishment depending upon the nature of criminal activity, right? But de
Yes.
facto tells what actually happens. Sometimes, depending upon the circumstance, what is in practice because of the political influence, because of the power influence in terms of money and all, sometimes killer or perpetrator acquitted, isn't it?
Yes.
Because of whatever the reason is. I'm not interested in that
Yes.
reason, but in
Yes.
practice, that happens in the
Yes.
society, and it is the story of
Yes.
across the world, not particularly in one country. So there are a lot
Yes.
of things are there, right on the basis of religion, है ना? So that is there.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in practice, that is there. Law says a lot of things about all this criminal activity, but in practice there are a lot of things to consider, है ना? So there are
Yes.
two terms that you need to think on, that is of course de facto and de jure. You should understand these two factors, they're very relevant Latin terms. Okay, so now again coming to the your review part regarding the, I want to understand your point of view regarding the acquittal of that person, because he killed two persons, है ना? He killed two people
Yes.
in the court premises and injured one
Yes.
police person, है ना?
Yes.
And injured
Yes.
one police officer. So despite all these facts, he was acquitted, and of course the defense lawyer taken regarding the insanity, you explained very nicely, because the nature of insanity and the link with the murderer and uh, the people who are murdered no cannot be established in this situation, and
Yes.
taking the defense of insanity is of course something that cannot be accepted in the court of law.
Yes.
Well, that, and you
Yes.
explained very nicely. I must appreciate that also, because you
Right.
explained
Thank
the
you.
insanity and how it can be taken as a defense, right?
Yes.
Huh. So
Yes.
that is of course very nice. But tell me on what you think, because he is acquitted, as you explained the concept of rule of law. You remember? You explained the concept
Yes.
of rule
Yes.
of law. So if someone committed a crime, it doesn't mean you are going to uh, punish him or them, isn't it? So there
Yes.
is system for that, है ना? You are not allowed
Yes.
to
Yeah.
take the revenge, though you are correct
Yes.
that
Yes.
happens something severe wrong with you, but you are not allowed to do that. Rather, there is
Yes.
a system, है ना?
Yes.
And
Yes.
you explained very well. Despite all these
Thank
facts,
you.
he was acquitted. So how you explain this point?
So obviously, in a real life situation,
Is it
this would
correct
not
or
happen.
not? If it is,
Pardon?
is it correct or not?
No,
His
it's
acquittal.
not correct, because this means that anybody can get away with any crime because I'm heartbroken, I'm disappointed, this was done wrong. So we don't believe in the concept of an eye for an eye. The justice system is there to regulate every single crime that is committed. Hence, I mentioned the crimes that were committed by the white men against the girl. But because this movie focuses on the crimes that the father dealt with, or the father acted out, they're not telling us how the crimes committed against the girl would have been dealt with. If he had given them a chance to go through the justice system and to have their fair trial, because even they also deserved a fair trial.
Right.
Like I said, everybody deserves a fair trial. And it is up to the courts to decide who is guilty based on all the evidence that is presented. So he failed to allow the court to actually run his course. Hence, I'm saying he didn't have a right to take matters into his own hands. Just like the mob did not have a right to take matters into their own hands. They all had to allow the legal system to take its course, to run its course. And if there was a dispute, had they been acquitted, for instance, there should therefore be an opportunity to appeal. If you are able to appeal the decision, then you take it further to a further court. In this case, it seems that it was a regional court. If the regional court decided something that you're not happy with, then you take it up to a higher court. You can even, in this type of situation, it could have potentially ended up all the way at the Constitutional Court.
Right.
So he didn't have to kill them. He didn't have to take matters into his own hands. And in a real life situation, he would not have gotten away, because there's more than enough to say that the other thing, there was an admission of guilt. He admitted that he killed them. He did, because the prosecutor said to him when he was cross-examining him, he said to him, "You wanted them to die," and he said, "Yes, he wanted them
Right,
to die." So it's an admission of guilt.
right.
So you can't now say temporary insanity, but you're admitting. On top of that, he handed himself over to the police after he killed them. So in a real life situation, no, he would be arrested.
Right. And his
Perhaps if he got away with a case of temporary insanity in any kind of way or form or some miracle, he would have not gotten away either. He would have probably gotten a reduced sentence. At the end of the day, he would have been sentenced. He would have been guilty. That's my opinion.
yeah, in reality, but I have some different
Yes.
perspective on this account. Of course, that is movie, and the director can manipulate the things as per his desire, and as per his script, whatever it is, है ना?
Yes.
But
yes.
in real life,
Yes.
of course, you are right. So in South Africa, before just going on that point, just can you let me know what about in your country regarding the jury trial? Is there the system of jury trial in South
No,
Africa?
there is no jury trial. There is no jury trial
Okay.
in South Africa. It's only
Only
magistrates and
magistrate or
judges
justice
that
system
have to
is there.
preside.
Okay, so
Yes.
okay, now come on the point that what I think, I'm not trying to justify the action of this or judgment, but there is some aspects of such type. I tell you. So again, I will explain two terms, as I explained the
Okay.
de facto and de jure. So again, I before explaining or justifying the action or the end result, I would like to explain two terms. There are two terms. The procedure established by law. You know this or not?
Yes.
The
I
procedure.
think that's why I was referring to the criminal procedure. Unless that's something different.
I tell you. Okay. So first you need to understand what is the term, the procedure established by law, and the second term, that is the due process of law. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now, based on these two concepts, the procedure established by law explains whatever the law says, as you were justifying. Okay, in real life, it won't be like this. He must be
Yes.
convicted. है ना? Because
Yes.
the kind of crime he committed, he must be convicted. There is no
That's
way of
convicted, yes.
come out. है ना? There is no way to
Yes.
come out. But
Yes.
but coming on the other aspect, as I asked first regarding the jury trial. Okay, so in jury trial, because in judicial system where there is no jury trial, of course not possible, because it is not
Yes.
in judge's hand to acquit, at least for such
Yes.
kind of crime that is happening inside the court only, है ना?
Yes.
So there is no
Yes.
no escape from such situation. But in jury
Yes.
trial, there is feasibility, because this is the beauty of jury trial, because those people are not law expert. You know this.
Yes. Yes.
All the jury members are the
Yes.
expert or the common people. They are common people.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
expert of
yes.
the sociology, psychology, maybe, possibly. But they are common people. They are
Yes.
not expert of law. So you need to consider this point. If if he is acquitted, then you can justify like this. So in jury trial, there is no scope of procedure established by law, as that is
Okay.
possible with the only judge system, where judge is the only person to decide the case. There is no scope of
Yes.
such kind of acquittal. But in jury system, it is very much possible. It's not nothing like exaggerated or nothing like that. A script is made like that. It is possible.
Yes. Yes.
It is possible, because now come on to the second term that I used, due process of law. The due process of law explains that is contrary to procedure established by law. The due process of
Yes.
law, you can say like this, it's not always or essentially, but it may be contrary to the procedure established by law, because due process of law sometimes going against the law, as happened in this movie.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
happened in this movie, because
Yes.
due process of law explains, it considers there are considers a lot of things. What happened, why he killed, what is his mental
Yes.
status, what is his uh, financial status, what is his social status, everything considers, है ना? Due
Mm.
process of law considers every point, I tell you. Based
Sure.
on that, so
Okay.
it doesn't
Okay.
take care of the law exactly what is written for such kind of action or act. So that is possible in procedure established by law concept, but in due process of law in US there is due process of law, and that is very much in practice, and jury system
Yes.
justifies, that. So in that
Okay.
kind of situation, if of course he wasn't insane, but
Yes. Yes.
but I tell you, as you explained, insanity, that was the something like revenge, clear cut revenge, है ना? So blunt revenge,
Yes.
as you also gave the
Sure.
example of eye for an eye. That is not like
Yes.
that is not the jurisprudence behind the penology. है ना?
Yes. Yes.
So it cannot be given in the hands of the victim. Okay, you go and take revenge, whatever happened with you.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
but
Yes.
again, coming to the concept due process of law, because it is very interesting. That's why I asked you to watch this movie. You can learn the law very nicely from such type of movies. So now you are getting the other aspect, isn't it? So
Yes.
under due
Yes.
process of law, it has nothing to do with the law, written law. It may
Okay.
consider, I'm not saying it cannot consider. It may consider
Okay.
the laws, whatever the laws available for that action, है ना? But
Yes.
it may also not consider those people.
Sure.
See, remember the closing statement, the way the lawyer explained the things, because
Yes.
everyone was crying, literally crying.
Yes. Yes.
Everyone
Yes.
was crying, because see the mental status. See, you, the jury members, they don't have any relation, any connectivity with the victim, with the little girl.
Yes.
है ना?
Yes.
Despite this fact, everyone was crying. So see the
Yes.
kind of trauma
Yes.
through which that father was going through. Now consider,
Yes. Yes.
his mental status, and
Yes. Yes.
the amount of you can say the aggression he was facing
Yes.
by the white people.
Yes.
Everyone was against him, despite the
Yes.
fact that
Yes.
his little daughter being raped.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
see, the society was against him, despite the
Yes.
fact,
Yes.
isn't it? So these are the
Yes.
things. Of course, he wasn't insane, but he wasn't not less than insane. Can you appreciate this statement?
I understand. Yes. Yes.
So he
Yes.
was, of course, not insane. I am repeating. Of course, he was not
Yes.
insane, but he wasn't. His
Yes.
mental status was not less than insanity.
Yes. Yes.
Because of course, just put
I
yourself into
understand.
that condition. Whose little girl just
Yes.
she was struggling. If she would have died, then the problem wasn't something like this. But she somehow survived, and the health condition she was going
Yes.
through. So that was,
Yes.
you cannot imagine the amount of torture he was feeling at that time.
Yes.
The mental
Yes.
agony,
Yes.
isn't it? So
Yes.
considering all the, and what the defense counsel did very nicely, I tell you, director was, I don't know, it was wonderfully presented. What he did, he just stolen some amount of that torture, the pain from
Yes.
from her father's, or that person's heart, and presented it
Yes.
in front of the jury member and shared with them.
Yes.
If you think like this,
Yes.
isn't it? What
Yes.
he did,
Yes.
he shared his pain with these jury members.
Yes.
And this is how very tactically he influenced those jury members and taken decision in his favor. This is how there is
Yes, yes,
no punishment at all. It's complete acquittal.
yes, yes.
So
It's, yeah, only
so
in the movies.
so now based on this discussion, now you tell me, was that correct or incorrect, the decision legally? Still,
Look, so based on the fact that, okay, I think if I focus on the movie only, like I said, he appealed to the humanness to add to what you're saying. He appealed to their humaneness, and that's what turned things around.
you explained
So
that
obviously,
term. While
you want,
in your presentation you
sorry.
explained the term. With the African term, you explained this humanity, based on the humanity.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So he used that very well. I agree with you 100%. He used it very, very well, and it turned the verdict around.
No, I'm not
Um,
explaining only emotionally, but also explained on the basis of law. Because if you consider the things, of course, emotion is there, but if you consider the due
yes,
process of law, that's why before coming to this conclusion or explaining the things, giving the human touch to this decision, I explained
yes,
that the legal
yes.
term, the due process of law. In due process of law, it is very much possible. So nothing, you cannot say something like it's a movie. That's why it is shown whatever director wants to show us. It's not like that. There is feasibility. There is possibility of such type. If you consider the
In real life
concept of due process of
situations
law.
where the jury will be able to change the verdict to be like that, based on, like you're saying, there is a chance that even if he wasn't, it was not insanity, but it was not less than insanity.
Insanity, right? So this is the thing. Okay, so that's really nice, Millie. It is really nice to have you and just having such a wonderful presentation. And I hope you must learn a lot because of your own efforts, isn't it? So really,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
and I
Because
will.
now you've mentioned points that I was not even thinking about.
Yes.
So now I must go and read and go back to this and think about it again. I understand that there's different legal philosophies as well in terms of what you were saying. What is the law? What does the law prescribe? What must actually happen after this has happened? So there's actually a lot to consider. It's not always black and white. There are possibly gray areas as well.
Yes, yes. So there you see the justice. What is justice? What is not justice? Justice is not something defined by the law. You have to consider all the aspects, Millie. And
Yes,
only
yes.
then you're able to give the justice to the society at large. It's always, of
Okay.
course, not the law. Law cannot, if you consider the only legal point of view, cannot justify any action. There are a lot of things that you need to consider while deciding any case. This is the why. This is why the judges are independent. There is
Yes,
no
yes,
fraud over the
yes,
judge's action. So whatever or she decides, what max you can do, you can appeal. You can go against the
yes,
judgment in higher
yes,
court, but you cannot go against
yes,
the judge. You can go against
yes,
the judge's
yes,
decision by appealing that case into higher court, but you cannot go against
yes,
the judge. This is the reason that judges are given the freedom, है ना?
yes,
So it's not
yes,
always law.
yes.
Of course, in civil law system there is less scope of due process of law, but in common law system,
Okay, okay.
due process in South Africa, I believe there is common law system, है ना?
Yes,
So
yes,
even in
yes.
your country, this is very much possible. I'm not saying this is something like okay, that is correct and this is only thing that might happen. I'm saying that what happened, that is not exaggerated. That is also possible.
Yes,
I'm saying
yes.
only this.
Yes, I'm
So
understanding what
so
you're
based
saying.
on the law, based on the humanity, as you explained, also humanity,
Yes.
that is justified. है ना? That is justified.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so lastly, I would like to also know your experience learning law through such type of action, watching movie and learning the law. Because I don't think with you might have even idea like this prior to this. So
No, no, yes, oh, sorry,
please,
sorry, I'm interrupting.
yes, please, please. Yeah, please tell me.
No, I obviously, I was not expecting it to be like this, But this is actually a very fun way to learn because, for instance, the movies you're talking about, I've never watched them. So now I'm watching with an eye that's looking out for legal aspects and trying to understand the legal concepts. I'm not just watching for entertainment.
Right.
So this is very educational. And being able to go back to it and listen to it again, and then I pick up something else. And I actually think this is a very good way of
To,
learning.
yes,
Because even
that's
now,
right.
I can take what you've the feedback you've given me and go back and watch again and listen again and see where the loopholes are and all of that. So I think this is a good way of learning.
One last point I would also like to share, and that is also something learning. That is the closing a statement. So you that is another tactic, है ना? That is really very technical point to understand. So if everyone knows that there is no point, no defense in the hands of defense lawyer, right? So
Yes.
what is going to save him? So this is how technically, strategically, he designed his closing statement. So
Yes. Yes.
you can always take shelter of such kind of technique, है ना? So you
Yeah.
are
No.
you are
It was
there.
a very powerful closing statement.
Exactly. And I didn't watch by the time any movie which has really this much powerful closing statement. And there is a lot to learn, I tell you.
Yes, no, definitely. Hence, I'm saying I'll also go back again now after this feedback and go and look at it again and fit in these pieces and try to place what you are saying because I didn't think of the due process of law
Yes.
when I was going through it.
No, while see, these are the common terms that you should understand: due process of law, procedure established by law, de facto, de jure, because these are the things that will help you to understand. That will help you
Yes,
to
yes,
explain the things. So see, as I didn't explain the on the basis of only the emotion or human touch or all. So ultimately, you need to also take the legal point of view. So
yes,
how you will
yes,
justify on the basis of the given law, है ना? You should. So
yes,
okay,
yes,
you start watching these movies and the reading the novels, fiction, even fiction novel, the drama and all. That will help you a lot to understand all these things, है ना? So
no, thank
really,
you.
thank you so much for this presentation.